There are many stories from the Vietnam War, stories of soldiers, spies, pilots, prisoners, survivors. But once in a lifetime, you encounter a story that doesn't echo with gunfire. It whispers. A story written not in strategy, not in orders, not in triumph, but in soft ink on fragile pages, under a dim oil lamp, in a jungle that devoured everything except her words. This is the story of Hung Thay Tram, a young doctor who carried no rifle, wore no armor, and marched into the war's deadliest valley armed only with her medical bag and a diary that would one day touch millions. On these pages, you will not find politics. You will not find propaganda. You will find a human heart, and how fiercely it beat until its final night. Tonight, we open that diary. If you want more stories like this, stories that expose the human soul behind the battlefield, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, tell me in the comments which hero or hidden chapter of history you want next. Your support keeps these forgotten voices alive. Hanoi, 1966. Autumn wind sweeps across the French-era buildings. Bicycles ring bells on crowded streets. Children chase each other on the sidewalks. Life is peaceful in the capital, but war is tearing the South apart. Inside a modest home, 24-year-old Hung Thay Tram sits at her wooden desk, packing a small medical kit, stethoscope, scalpel, gauze, iodine, antibiotic vials wrapped in cloth. Her mother watches with trembling hands. "Stay," she whispers. "You can save lives here." But they closes the medical bag and replies softly, "Mother, the ones who need me most are not here." She wasn't a soldier. She wasn't trained for combat, but she believed something with unshakable certainty. A doctor must go where the wounds are. Days later, she traveled south, crossing mountains, rivers, and bombed roads. Her convoy moved only at night. By day, they hid beneath bamboo or inside cave shelters. When she finally reached Quảng Ngãi, every fighter she met was shocked. A young woman, educated, fearless, and she had willingly walked into the lion's den. Her diary entry that night: "Today I arrived in GCPH. I heard the distant thud of artillery. My heart trembles. But I am ready." She had no idea that this place, this jungle valley, would become both her battlefield and her grave. Her new hospital was nothing like the clinics she trained in. It was a bamboo hut buried under layers of leaves to hide it from aircraft. No concrete, no electricity, no sterilization equipment. Oil lamps flickered during operations. She had 2 surgical knives, a few rolls of gauze, a rusty set of forceps, a bottle of alcohol. Barely enough antibiotics for a week, but she had something stronger than supplies: willpower. Every day, fighters arrived carried on bamboo stretchers, legs torn by shrapnel, faces burned, bullets embedded in muscle, fevers rising from infection. And she worked without rest. When morphine ran out, she held their hands so they wouldn't bite through their lips from the pain. When bandages ran low, she washed old ones and reused them. When infection spread, she performed surgeries by touch, guided only by the trembling glow of an oil lamp and her own steady breath. One night, after 16 hours on her feet, a wounded teenager begged, "Doctor, don't let me die." She held his face and whispered, "As long as I'm breathing, you won't." He lived. That night she wrote, "I am exhausted. I feel I could collapse. But their eyes carry me through the darkness. Their suffering is heavier than my fatigue." Soldiers began calling her the Angel of GCPH, Sister Tram, but she didn't want the title. She wrote, "If I were an angel, I would take away this war. I am only a doctor." Quảng Ngãi became one of the most heavily targeted regions in the war. Every night, the sky opened up with fire. The sound of jets tore through the darkness. Artillery shells landed so close that dust fell from the ceiling onto the wounded. Once, a bomb struck 50 meters from the hospital, blowing apart the entrance and knocking everyone to the ground. They got up first, not to run, but to cover her patients with her own body as the roof collapsed. Another night, a 17-year-old guerrilla lost both legs. The nurses panicked. They weren't trained for catastrophic amputations. They stepped forward. "Bring me my lamp." With trembling hands, soaked in sweat, she clamped arteries, stopped bleeding, stitched torn flesh, all while the earth shook with explosions. He lived 3 more days, just long enough to thank her. Her diary that night: "I held his hand as he slipped away. He called me sister. I told him to sleep. War stole his future, but not his dignity. During these months, she became something more than a doctor. She became the moral spine of her entire unit. Whenever morale collapsed, they asked her to speak. Whenever a soldier panicked, she sat by him until he calmed. Whenever a mother's letter arrived for a fighter who had died, she wrote back every time to say he was brave, peaceful, and not alone. Her words carried more hope than any weapon. Early 1970, American and ARVN forces launched a massive sweep into the region. Helicopters thundered overhead. Patrols tightened the noose. Airstrikes pounded the hills. For 15 days, her hospital was hunted. 15 days of carrying wounded through knee-deep mud. 15 days of surgeries in caves lit by candles. 15 days of sleeping on routes and waking to gunfire. 15 days without proper meals or clean water. Nurses cried from exhaustion. Soldiers begged her to escape with them. She refused. A doctor does not abandon the wounded. I will go where they go. And if they cannot walk, I will stay. One evening, the unit crossed a valley just as helicopters approached. They took a wounded man on her back, struggling forward despite bullets hitting trees around them. Another soldier shouted, "Leave him, you'll be killed." She yelled back, "If we leave one man behind, we lose all honor." They made it into the trees. She saved him. Her diary: fear is powerful, but love is stronger. And tonight, loved one, June 22, 1970, her group moved quietly through a ravine, trying to relocate the field hospital before dawn. The jungle was humid, thick, suffocating. No one spoke. Even the insects seemed silent. Then, gunfire snapped from the tree line. Ambush, bullets shredded bamboo. Nurses scattered. Wounded fighters dragged themselves behind rocks. Order crumbled, but they did not run. A severely injured guerrilla lay bleeding in the open, too weak to crawl. They sprinted to him, shielding his body with her own. Witnesses say she shouted, "Go, leave us, move." While everyone else retreated, she stayed with the dying man, pressing her hands on his wound, whispering to keep him awake. Moments later, gunfire struck her. She fell beside him. She died in the place she had chosen, next to a patient she refused to abandon. She was 27 years old. Her last diary entry was written just days before. "My soul is filled with love. I have no regrets. If I must die, let it be on this land." Among my wounded, after the firefight, U.S. forces searched the area. Order was simple: burn all documents. But when American intelligence officer Fred Whitehurst handed Thay's diary to an interpreter, the man paused on one line. He read aloud, "I write for no one but myself. But maybe one day, someone will understand." Whitehurst felt something shift inside him. "This isn't propaganda," he said. "This is a human soul." He refused to burn it. For 35 years, he kept her diary safe in America, searching for her family. In 2005, he finally stood in a small Hanoi living room, holding the worn, water-stained book in his hands. Thay's mother recognized her daughter's handwriting instantly. She pressed the diary to her chest and broke into tears. When the diary was published, millions read it. People across Vietnam said it felt like hearing the voice of a sister, daughter, or friend lost to the war. Today, Hung Thay Tram is remembered not for how she died, but for how fiercely she lived. A doctor without fear, a woman of uncheckable compassion, a light in a jungle of fire. Her diary survived the war, and so did her heart.